It's Wednesday, June 15th. I'd like to call the West Hartford Virtual Community Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting to order. Let the record reflect that all three committee members are present, Mr. Zdanowitz, Mr. Winograd, as well as myself. Also joining us is Mayor Cantor. We have Mr. Summer, our acting town manager, led with, is that Tim? Tim from building? I don't want to screw up his last name, and Ms. Gorski. Good morning, everyone. So the first item is without objection, approval of the minutes of the May 18th, 2022 meeting. Is there any objection?
No.
Okay. Okay, no objection. The minutes will be accepted. We'll move on right now to item 3A, which is the North Main Street Road Diet Study, Phase 2, final recommendations. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Ledwith, acting town manager. Good morning. Good morning, town councilors. We wanted to provide CPED with an update on the North Main Street Road Diet, focusing on our consultant's final recommendations. As a brief background, the road diet, as we know, has been in place since August of 2021. We've had significant public input along the way, including a town hall meeting in April, as well as an update to our town council on May 24th. Based on the results of this road diet, the trial has achieved all of our objectives. And those were, as we know, to reduce crash frequency, reduce operating speeds, and improve accessibility for pedestrians and bicyclists. In addition, as I mentioned, we had several opportunities for public input and have received a very favorable response from the public overall. Based on this, we have made the decision to maintain the road diet permanently. Our consultant has also made some recommendations that we'll be implementing over the course of the next couple of years. And we wanted to talk through these recommendations with CPED this morning. First, they have recommended widening North Main Street south of Fern Street. So south of Fern Street going down to Loomis to accommodate 5-foot bike lanes. The widening would take place on the east side of North Main Street. So that would go south of Fern. There's a couple of houses there when you're first coming south of Fern, then you're going alongside the cemetery. We estimate the cost of this project to be around $300,000, and we would plan to do this next fiscal year. This was not unexpected to the town. This is something that we were thinking would happen at the beginning of the trial. So we are in agreement with this recommendation from BHB, our consultant. In addition, another recommendation would be to delineate bike lanes with 6-inch wide white edge lines and then bike lane signs along the entire road diet. So we would do that this year. The norm is usually a 4-inch wide white line. We will increase that to 6 inches. The third recommendation would be to modify the signal phasing at the intersection of North Main and Fern to add an eastbound protected permitted left turn phase. And we would do this in 2023. This year, we will also restripe North Main Street from between Asylum and Mountain View to extend the length of the southbound left turn lane at Asylum. We'd add about 215 feet of a left turn lane there. Later this year, we will install a pedestrian crossing across North Main Street at the intersection of Wynwood and Lynbrook with, what do they call this? It's got a fancy little name here.
I think it's beacon, some type of beacon.
Yeah. We have our town engineer who can interpret some of these acronyms that I'm still trying to get used to.
The rectangular rapid flashing beacon. It's the warning lights.
Okay. Thank you. Our consultant is also recommending that we further study speed data. So, which early data indicates that an appropriate speed limit might be 35 miles an hour along the corridor. But we will continue to study the speed as we move through the rest of the year before making any kind of change. And certainly we would let CPED know before we did anything in terms of making a change there. During the study, we did receive comments from the public requesting a dedicated left turn lane for the eastbound approach to Asylum. Our consultant did not recommend making this change based on vehicle traffic demand, and then the impact that it would have overall on delays at a particularly busy intersection. However, we may incorporate an exclusive left turn lane, which we would do in 2023. And one final recommendation that the consultant made was to modify the signal phasing at the intersection of Trout Brook and Fern to add a left turn phasing for the eastbound and westbound approaches to that intersection. That would also require changing the signals up above, and we would do that in 2023. So those are the recommendations that we will be moving forward with over the next year or two. I'll stop there. I'll turn it over to our town engineer to see if he had any final comments based on these recommendations, and then back through you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions for us.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Craig Summer, town engineer. Just to echo what Rick had indicated, it's going to be more of a phased approach. Some of the more easier and simple implementation or recommendations will be implemented this year. The signal modifications require some approvals from the state DOT. So we'll continue to move those forward, but anticipate that will take a little bit longer to get the approval and then funding in place for those improvements. That's why those are going to wait till 2023. But that said, I think he's covered it pretty well.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Mr. Zanowitz, do you have any questions?
I do, thank you. This is really anecdotal. I travel the road diet all the time, and I use Waze, not because I don't know where I'm going often, or sometimes I don't, if it's a distance. And it was one of those things where they talked about the bypass traffic going around, and Waze, this is just anecdotal. Mark Sedan was driving, is demanding that I miss the road diet road completely and going around where it never had done that before. So Waze has showed, and I'm like, no, I know where I'm going. I'm going straight. I'm going to go down North Main. And at some of the times there's very little traffic, but yet Waze is making me go around. So I've been at a lot of these meetings, and I know some of the engineers and the consultants have talked about that they haven't seen any further increase in bypass traffic, or very little. And that may be the case, just my example, but I just wanted to bring it up, that Waze now, through however that works, Chip Ward will tell you how that stuff works, but it is what it is. So in fact, I was going out to dinner the other night, and in particular that happened. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then the speed study, understand, what's appropriate speed, this, that, the other thing. And again, my example is there a standard, an SOP, federal, state, for that type of road? Because those speed limits come from somewhere. And I'll just give you an example too. Around the lake house in New Hampshire, the speed limit is 20 or 25. Either way, that is like going 600 miles an hour around a lake. But yet that, we talked to the town, that is the slowest you possibly can go by state standards. That happens to be New Hampshire. So even 20 miles an hour around the lake is way too fast. And I'm just asking if there's are we looking at speed because it's too fast perceived, or is it a study done by, or it's a standard done by federal or state? And then my last thing, the color of the lines for the bike lanes. Is there any way, I know other towns and even countries, they delineate their bike lanes with different colors. Like, can that stripe be green? Again, I don't know by state or federal standards. if it can or cannot, but something that maybe sticks out differently, delineating that that's the bike lane and such. I know we have bike outlines, but it might stick out more if it were a different color, if it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zanowitz. Mr. Summers?
Sure. Let me touch on those three questions. With regards to ways, that's something that's kind of out of our control. We've asked about that in the past. We've had issues with cut through traffic on other streets, and we've actually reached out to Waze and said, why are you routing traffic down these, one street versus the other? And that's their whole business model, is to try and find the shortest route. Why it's avoiding North Main Street, I'm not entirely certain. From what we've seen doing our traffic time trials, we haven't seen a significant drop in travel time from one or the other, whether you're taking Trout Brook or North Main or Mountain. So, we could certainly look at that, but we're not seeing that same level of diversion. Maybe it's because folks aren't using Waze to navigate locally if they're familiar with the network. But with regards to the speed limit, I think the thought here is to make it a little more consistent throughout the entire corridor. Right now, there's a section on the southern portion that's 30 miles an hour, and then it jumps up to 35. Based on the prevailing speeds that we're measuring, we feel that 35 is more appropriate and more consistent. A lot of times we're faced with the feedback from residents is that a lot of our local streets are posted at 30. That's the same as North Main Street, and so I think this change, it's an appropriate time to do that, and I think it's going to be a little bit, we'll make that conversation a little bit easier for us in the future, as we try and explain to residents that no, the North Main Street is an arterial street. 35 miles per hour is an appropriate speed limit for that section of roadway, and I don't think it's going to overall it's going to change how fast people are driving on the street. I think the road diet itself has made that change, but the posted speed limit, the sign itself will have very little bearing on how fast people are traveling. I don't think you're going to see an uptick just because we change it from 30 to 35. But that's something that we'll continue to look at, do a little more studies, and that'll be later this fall or in the winter that we'll look at making that change. And then the last question you had regarding bike lanes, they do allow for the lane itself to be painted a green color, but the line itself has to be white. Just so you have that contrast, it's still acting as the edge line for the drivers as well. We've explored this option. We've gotten this request in the past, but green bike lanes just become pretty cost prohibitive, and it's a challenge to maintain. They would get pretty beaten up with snow plows and things like that. So you'd be constantly having to refresh that. And instead of just a 4 or 6 inch wide line, now you're looking at that entire 5 foot wide bike lane that would be painted. So it's a lot more paint and certainly a lot more cost. So that's why we haven't gone to the green bike lanes in the past.
All right, thank you. And just back to the Waze thing. So on different days and times, actually going down North Main wasn't busy at all, and it still wanted me to reroute. So, that crowdsourcing that they use, I don't know how long it stays in the system. I don't know it, but normally, yes, it tries to make you go the quickest way. But in this point, it was actually the quickest way would have been North Main because there was zero traffic. And so I found that out. That's all. So, but thank you for your.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Thank you, Mr. Zanowitz. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Mr. David. Yeah, my question actually is similar to Mr. Danowitz's, but so on the speed, you got me a little more concerned now. So the way that the whole 80%, 85% of people going below or above a limit, if you can explain like how that works and why, I'd appreciate it. Because it always seems counterintuitive that you're establishing a speed limit based on how much people violate it, as opposed to determining what should be a safe speed. And it sort of encourages, at some level, just following the illegal usage, right? If you speed enough, you can get the speed higher on a street, as opposed to some engineering standard that says this is what should be done. And certainly we're going to have some pushback if anybody's going to suggest that we any attempt to increase the speed there after we put in a road diet is something going to cause a lot of concern. So if you can address that. And the other issue is just whether or not any of this will have any impact on ongoing looking at the Farmington Avenue intersection, and some discussion of what obviously waiting for the police report to see what safety concerns we have right there. And I'll go back on mute because you probably don't want to hear my traffic. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Mr. Summers.
Thank you. So the 85th percentile speed, speed at which 85% of traffic is traveling at or below, is kind of the general rule of thumb among traffic engineers. It's the speed that most drivers feel is reasonable. So that's kind of why we use that as our benchmark. Regardless of a posted sign, drivers feel drive what they feel is comfortable based on the characteristics of the roadway, how much traffic there is. Subconsciously, you're doing that every day as you're driving. So that's kind of where we use that. In establishing a speed limit, we generally post the speed limit. It's usually the prevailing speed is probably about 5 to 10 miles per hour faster than the posted speed limit in most cases, and that's what we'd be looking at here. I think we had speeds in the low 40s on North Main Street. So again, it's right in that range, which is why we're thinking 35 miles per hour is appropriate. As I mentioned, the northern section of the road diet is already posted at 35. The southern section, for some reason, was established at 30 many years ago, but there's really no change in the characteristics of the roadway as you're driving. There's nothing visually or from a driver standpoint, nothing that would indicate why the road you suddenly need to reduce your travel speed when you get to that southern portion. So I think just from a consistency standpoint, that's why we're recommending 35 as the new posted speed limit. But again, we're going to continue to look at that. I know there's some heightened sensitivity with certainly with the recent pedestrian fatality that we experienced a couple weeks ago. So we're sensitive to that, and we recognize that it may not be the best time, but we're going to keep looking at it. With regards to the crash that occurred, again, we want to wait and get the final report from the PD, and certainly take a look to see if there's anything that would impact or what we could potentially do to correct that crash if there is something that we identified as being correctable. I'm not entirely sure that's going to be the case, but I don't think that the just by location is probably the only really correlation. I don't think it had anything to do with the road diet itself.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Anything further, Mr. Winograd? All right, thank you. So yeah, I think all the changes that were recommended by the consultant make a lot of sense. I think though that when we talk about speed limit, I think that was a major concern of the people who resided along the stretch from Asylum to Fern Street with respect to speed. That was their major concern. And what I do notice is the speed limit could say 30, could say 35. I think a lot of people just take that as a suggestion. It's regardless of where you are in town. I know when I travel on Trout Brook, I call it the mighty Trout Brook Speedway. And I think people like the fact that it's got those S curves in it, and they can try to see how fast they can go. Because if you go to the speed limit and then there's someone in the left lane passing you, you say to yourself, well, if I'm going 40 and I'm over the speed limit, how fast are they going? And then you realize, oh, they must be going 50 or 55. And when you get to the light at Fern Street, you say, wow, we got to the same place, same time. So I don't know what the big rush was, but I think that's a mentality. So I don't know, maybe a signage that, speed strictly enforced or something like that. I don't know, but I think we need to be sensitive to the fact that one of the reasons we had the road diet in the first place was people thought it was unsafe because of the speed that cars were traveling. I don't think it had as much to do with the volume. I think it had to do a lot with the speed, the changing of the lanes when people were making turns, and not a lot of room to protect a pedestrian on the sidewalk from the right travel lane. So as long as we stay true to those concerns, I think we'll be okay. So thank you very much for the update this morning. And we'll move on to the next item, which is staff reports. And the first one is community development update. I understand that Mr. Martin is enjoying a well-deserved vacation this week. So our chief building official, Tim M., because I don't want to pronounce his name wrong, is here to provide an update. Is that correct, Mr. Ledwith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Ledwith, acting town manager. I think what we'll do is we'll have our town engineer give a brief update on some of the items on that report. And then our chief building official will give us an update on City View, which I know the council has been well aware of that project. And we have some a very positive update on where that project is right now. So I'll turn it through you, Mr. Chairman, turn it to our town engineer, Greg Summer.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. I stand corrected, Mr. Summers.
Good morning again. Thank you, Greg Summer, town engineer. So the drainage study, we are still progressing, working with our consultant CDM Smith, doing some preliminary investigations, some field work, some survey to further those projects along. I think one of the most recent meetings we had was a request to provide a map just kind of outlining the drainage areas and a high level overview of exactly which study areas we'll be working on, and that will be shared through the town manager with the council to give you a better understanding of exactly where our efforts are being focused, in this initial phase of this project. So that'll be forthcoming. Our consultants working on pulling that information together at this time. Trout Brook Trail, Phase 5, the final inspection was yesterday. I think it's been very well received by the community. It's been open for unofficially for a number of weeks now. We're in the process of pulling together a press release to really make that a formal announcement and celebrate, that new trail section. And then hopefully continue some of that momentum with Phase 6, which will be the continuation from Fern Street, continuing north up to Duffield Drive. So that we're hoping to be bid later this month, and then possibly into construction as soon as this fall. So hopefully that will continue, and I think that'll be a nice addition as we get some real length to this trail. I think that'll be really well received by the community. The West Hartford Infrastructure Master Plan. This has been an ongoing project. The town has solicited proposals. We've received 4 bids from consultants, which we've reviewed. We've selected Stantec as our consultant to move forward with our infrastructure master planning project. We have a kickoff meeting scheduled with them next week. So you'll obviously be hearing more about that in the future. Certainly a big public outreach component will be part of that project as we get into it. We certainly want to hear from our major stakeholders in the community as we look to kind of re-envision West Hartford Center. And then the last thing I just wanted to touch on, obviously, in light of the recent crash, there's been a little bit of a heightened interest among the community. So we've been dealing with that, dealing with some additional requests and concerns from our residents that the engineering division is kind of responding to as we can, whether it be looking into recent crashes or just understanding potentially unsafe issues at intersections. And again, stressing the importance that we really want to make sure we understand what happened in each of these crashes before we react to it. Oftentimes it may be a distracted driver or some other issue, contributing factor that's outside of a correctable measure from an engineering standpoint. So just important that we get an understanding of that before we react. I know a lot of times on social media, it's people see a crash and they post it, and there's a lot of community concern and frustration. But it's important that we understand the root cause before we react to it. So that's all I have for my report, and happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Mr. Summer. Any questions of Mr. Summer? Mr. Zanowitz, any questions? No. Mr. Winograd, any questions? No. And I have no questions. Thank you, sir, for your report. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Ledwith, Acting Town Manager. We'll have Tim McClochie, our Chief Building Official, give us an update on City View.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Tim McClochie, Chief Building Official. Construction activity is still moving along. Some of the bigger projects are moving a little faster than others. Supply chain issues are a little bit of a problem everywhere. As Mr. Ledwith said, we're working towards going online with City View, and we're very close. We're actually at the validation portion. So what we did was we had 6 or 7 contractors and property owners in town come in to review our program online and to use it, excuse me, and to give us feedback to see what they think and see what we need to tweak. Since we've been in the validation, we've put in over 300 work tickets to City View to tweak it and customize it a little, and we have about 70 open. So we're probably a couple weeks away from going live with that program. We're crafting a notice right now to put on our website and to put on all of our emails to make people aware of our new online, and that we'll be going to it shortly. So I'm excited about that. That'll take a lot of pressure off and help us reduce times and increase customer service. So that's big. That's all I really have. That's big news for us, and I'm excited about hopefully getting that done by the end of the month.
Thank you, Mr. McClochie. It's very exciting because it's been a long time coming, and I know the mayor has had a very vested interest in having us become more business friendly and adapting to this virtual way of connecting with the department so that people can see the progress of their applications, and it should make workflow go a lot quicker and reduce paper for the department. So hopefully it's a win-win, and hopefully as we launch it, it will be a successful launch and we'll get positive feedback. With that said, Mr. Zanowitz, do you have any questions or comments?
Just one, I was wondering if at some point, once it's up and running and we can get examples of City View and how it works for our own edification, and so we can be educated a little more.
Sure, absolutely. We could do that. Rick, we could set that up, but maybe at the next meeting, we could have it ready to go. It's going to be very informative. We're going to have question boxes. If you have a question at a certain stage, you can hit the box. So I think it's really going to streamline the process, but we can do that.
Thank you for that response. The excellent question, Mr. Zanowitz. That would be good to know so that we could also be ambassadors for the department with respect to any of our constituents asking questions. Mr. Winograd, any questions? I presume you said nothing that you had any questions, because it sounded like maybe you were in the hills of Middlebury or Southbury. So we couldn't make anything out.
I didn't say no.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know if Mayor Cantors has any questions or comments. Probably not. Okay, so thank you. We'll move on to item 4B, which is the economic development update. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Ledwith, Acting Town Manager. We have our Economic Development Coordinator, Kristen Gorski, here this morning. Kristen will update it or uploaded her report, which she will review with the committee. And as you can see, there is a tremendous amount of activity going on town-wide. So it's, I honestly think it's busier now than it ever has been in a very long time. So a lot of exciting things happening around town. And Kristen will give us all an update as to what's happening at really all corners of town. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you, Ms. Gorski.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Good morning. Kristen Gorski, Economic Development Coordinator. Before I jump into the report that you have access to, I just wanted to give a couple of additional updates first. So we have, with our part-time economic development specialist, we have been really working on getting into businesses much more frequently. So in the month of May, combined, we visited 16 businesses. And then this month, already visited and then, planned, we expect to hit about 14 or 15 businesses. So on those business visits that we've been having, we've been speaking with the business owners, trying to, baseline understand how things are going, any challenges that they have. We've been taking a lot of really great pictures for social media and have really started to enhance a lot of our showcases through our social media to be able to market and support our businesses. In addition, if you will recall, and hopefully everybody has seen this, earlier last month in the month of May, we re-energized and reestablished our relationship with the Connecticut Small Business Development Center. So we are offering on Mondays at Town Hall, we are offering free confidential business advising with Denise Whitford, who is an excellent business advisor with SBDC. Those are by appointment. However, there is certainly a correlation here, as I can't get into the specifics, but we'll say, as we're visiting businesses and trying to understand challenges, we have been making a lot of direct referrals over to Denise and the Connecticut Small Business Development Center. And since she has in office town hall hours regularly, it has worked out tremendously well for businesses to have access to those services. So just wanted to give that quick update. I think moving forward, we certainly will not slow down with those referrals. The SBDC, they work on anything from further refining business plans to helping with marketing, access to clientele, rebranding, you name it. They have specializations to help businesses there. So certainly a really great opportunity for our businesses to meet with those advisors. We also, just a quick snapshot, we also have increased our social media presence. We've increased the amount of viewers over 30% within the last 30 days. We've reached over 1,500 accounts with our posts. So again, trying to market and get the word out about very unique things about our businesses. It seems to be really working quite well. So we'll continue to do that. In addition, we recently, and this has been a long time coming, we recently were able to successfully upload the Young Professionals page on the Why West Hartford website. So if you haven't, please check that out. It was a combined effort through our ad hoc Why West Hartford committee in order to get that done. And that was a request that came out of this committee last year. So we think that this will be a really great addition to that website. We are going to work on some further communications just to continue to get the word out about that website as a whole. And then lastly, with the mayor on vacation last week, I had a really great opportunity to pinch hit for her. We were asked to participate on a panel of mayors. So I joined 4 other mayors in the greater Hartford area at the Connecticut Commercial Real Estate Conference that was held at the Delamar. So this was through the Greater Hartford Association of Realtors. We spoke about, trends in economic development, how communities were recovering. It was a great opportunity because we were speaking to approximately 100 leaders in commercial real estate and really some, great contacts around the state. So, we saw a lot of, people that we know and work with, and we established some new relationships, but it was a really great opportunity to showcase everything that's going on in West Hartford. And I think that, it was incredibly positively received. So happy to have that opportunity. I'm just going to share my screen and roll into the report. Give me one moment. Great. Can everybody see that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry. Thank you. So I put together a quarterly report. It's titled quarter two. Obviously that won't end until the end of the month, but given where we are with the position of this committee, I put together the best that I could. So let me give some updates just on everything that's going on. Yes, it's incredibly busy, and certainly a lot of the business updates that are on here, as well as the development updates. Certainly, everybody who's on here at a staff level, Tim, Greg, not here, Dwayne, Todd, and all their staffs certainly play a role here. So let me give you some updates in terms of what's going on. Springtide Child Development, they are very, very close to being open. So they are a office user. They work with children with autism. They are moving into a larger space in Bishop's Corner in the Edens Plaza. They are just completing their build out. So we should have an understanding of them opening quite soon. They're very excited to join the community. Chopped Creative Salad Company, they are continuing to build out their location in that same plaza in a portion of the former Max Beverage space. GP Urology, this is a brand new lease. It was executed approximately 2 weeks ago. So this is approximately a 5,000 square foot lease. And this particular urology facility, they are affiliated with St. Francis. So that's something that's brand new. Gypset Salon. This is a brand new salon that has been announced that will be opening space in Salons by JC. Also in the same exact building. Recently we received building permits and they're starting to do some work at the lower level. This is where Abby Dabby had been in the Edens Plaza. Flowers of Life Apothecary. So, a lovely woman who will be opening a apothecary in that location. They hope to open probably closer to the fall time. I won't touch on every single one as some of these are just ongoing build outs. So I just want to hit on the highlights. Gansha continues to build out their location. They are moving into the former subway space on Farmington Avenue right next to the chamber. So that will be a bubble tea concept opened by Sunny Chen, who owns Black Bamboo. In Blueback Square, several build outs that are underway. Rosa Mexicano, we more recently started to get building permits from them. So they are quite early in building out. They expect to hopefully be open later this summer. Oath Pizza is getting very close. They are moving into the former Pokemon space next to Spot Coffee. So we should have a good understanding quite soon of when they will open. GYL Financial Synergies, they continue to build out in their space. They hope to be open in a larger expanded space in Blueback Square later this summer. El Santo, so they opened about a month ago. I mentioned them because we had a wonderful chamber ribbon cutting there last night. The owners are just so excited to have a second opportunity here in West Hartford. They were absolutely packed, and it had nothing to do with the chamber event that was happening there. So they have been open for approximately a month, and we certainly wish them well. More Italian Pasta Lab. This is something that has been announced. So they will be moving into the former Freshie space. So this is, really exciting. This is a woman who is relocating to West Hartford from Rome, Italy, and she will be opening a pasta business. So in that space, she plans to manufacture all fresh pastas in-house, sauces, salads, all of those types of foods. And then it will be a retail sales, as well as people can grab some quick service food to go as well. She identified West Hartford as, a place that she had heard of from friends and family, and they visited here and they fell in love with West Hartford. So her and her family will be relocating to West Hartford from Rome later this summer, and she's excited to open her first business here. So that's a tremendous story. that I just wanted to share with the committee this morning. Moving along, a lot of activity over off of Kane Street in the Prospect Plaza. So Planet Fitness as well as DoorDash, they are well underway with their build outs on the next page, but we'll mention here, Floor and Decor. They are incredibly close to opening, so we are in contact with their newly hired general manager as well as corporate to understand when their grand opening will be. Likely that will be either towards the end of this month or early July. Right across the street, IHOP is continuing to build out their space. They do have finally a coming soon sign that is hung on the building itself. And they, a couple weeks ago, they removed the Gold Rock Diner signage. So they are getting very close to being open in that space. Starbucks that is has been announced in the former D'Angelo's. No work is underway yet, but we do expect that to occur soon. Hartford Chrome, they are our fourth largest manufacturer in town. They're a manufacturer of aerospace components. They are doing their build out at 114 Shield Street. So they will share that space with Dillon Manufacturing and Printing. And this is an expansion for them here in town. They will be expanding a couple of their components of their operation. So really excited. They're adding approximately 30,000 square feet with this expansion. A couple of new businesses that are building out in 635 New Park, Revival Skin and Brows, the Performance Lab, Rebellion Barbershop. That was a relocation from Salons by JC. So that's an expansion and relocation. And then Magic Power Tattoo. They continue to build out in that space. Harbor Freight Tools. On your copy, and I apologize, I updated this morning because I had this incorrect. On your copy, it says that they had announced it. They are actually building out in this location. So Harbor Freight Tools, they are taking approximately I believe it's about 7,000 square feet of space at 983 New Britain Avenue. So that is the former Blast Fitness space over in the Price Chopper Plaza. So they are currently building out in that space. That will be a retail location. Central Rock Gym, that was announced. They are going into 99 Shield Street. If you have not been able to access this, certainly go on their website. They have a really cool fly-through video that is on their website that announces that West Hartford is their new location. They have some conceptuals in that fly-through of how they expect to retrofit that building. It's really exciting. You know, I was talking with the broker who did the deal, and he said that it's going to be one of the largest climbing walls in all of New England. Once they are up and running, they'll have stretching space, yoga space. It's going to be a tremendous addition to that neighborhood. Goff Law Group, they are in the process of expanding yet again in West Hartford. So they are currently over at the corner of Dale and Brace in the center. They are working to move into a much larger space at Corporate Center West. So they are currently working on building out in that location, working very closely with the building department on that. Also, another office user, Berkeley Insurance Company. This is a satellite location for them. This is a really substantial company that's more anchored down in Fairfield County, but they are nationwide. They had a smaller location over at across from Town Hall at Town Center Garage, or excuse me, Town Center building, and they are relocating to a larger space at Corporate Center West. Tavern in the Square in Corbin's Corner, they recently opened. They're doing extremely well, you know, for their first couple of weeks, which is great news. And just a quick point, that is the very first location for them in Connecticut. A couple of last items on leasing and new businesses, a couple of newer build outs that are just starting to get underway, Club Pilates and Crumble Cookies. They are subdividing the space that is directly next to REI in the Seritage Plaza. Those are, again, two newer leases, but what's really exciting is with them being underway with build out, that redevelopment, that multi-tenant redevelopment that used to be Sears, they're now fully leased on the ground floor. So once both of these businesses open, they will be, 100% full of activity, which is really tremendous news. And then the last item that I will just mention, Nothing Bundt Cakes, they continue to build out in their space. The owner, Tracy Halke, she attended our, the town and the chamber's job fair a couple of weeks ago. And so they are actively hiring. And they are expecting to open hopefully later this summer, but excited, very excited to join the community and really jumping in, being very active with the chamber and with the community. So I will pause there. I have a couple of additional slides, as you see. I just want to see if there's any questions on any of what I just mentioned or any other business related questions.
Any questions, Mr. Zanowitz? No. Mr. Winograd, any questions?
Couple more quick updates. So I started to include this, excuse me, last year. We pull this information off of CoStar, and they update it daily. And so these are the current vacancy rates that we have. Everything is decreasing and trending in a really positive direction. As you see, our local market is just incredibly busy. It's incredibly, stable. And a lot of these vacancies, in particular industrial, are some of the lowest that we've had, quite honestly, in terms of what we can access in over a decade. So our industrial is currently at a 3% vacancy, which is really honestly unheard of. It's interesting because on CoStar, you can see some of these trends. And so this is the lowest we've had in about 13 years. Multifamily continues to decrease just slightly at 2.9%. Office is currently at 5.5%. It was really interesting at the real estate conference I referenced last week. There was a panel of commercial real estate professionals, each covered a different industry. The outlook on office in the region, in the state, nationwide is not good. So we are certainly doing something right. We're an oddity there. Really, it was talking about how people's vacancies continue to go up. There are some office vacancies in the Hartford region that are plus 20%. So it's really tremendously exciting news that we continue to trend down, and we have had a lot of really good office activity. We have also had people who have returned to the office, I think, a little bit more regularly than other communities. So certainly, not trying to compare us to anybody else, but just wanted to give you all a good understanding of what others are experiencing. So, really great news for us in West Hartford. And then finally, our retail is trending down at 8.3%, as you can see with a lot of the activity that I had just mentioned. Couple of property sales. I won't go through all of these. I will just mention one really great one that's near and dear to my heart. So we worked with 555 New Park Avenue for some months. And so this is the property that's right on the corner of New Park Avenue and Talcott, Connecticut. Shower and Bath. They were able to purchase their location, which is really exciting. So they have been leasing in that location for 20 plus years. The property got put up for sale, so we worked very closely with the owners to be able to acquire that property. So that ensures that that business will stay here long term here in West Hartford, which is just fantastic news. And then I will also just mention 22 Park Road. That is pretty much directly across from the One Park development. It is a 3-story multi-family. So that is a property that recently sold last month for $1.9 million, which is really surprising. I think the appraisal is just north of 400,000. So this is a really interesting comp to be able to share with you. The property had sold in 2019, so not too long ago, but prior to that acquisition, the property had been consistently in disrepair, and on many enforcement lists. And so the people who had purchased it in 2019 did a lot of work to clean up and rehab that property. So I think that that's reflected in the sale. But that's great activity for Park Road. And then lastly, just a couple of development updates. I won't go into detail about all of these, but we have some exciting developments that are working its way through the Design Review Advisory Committee, and are starting to work to tee up to hopeful special development district submissions in the future. So this is some information on these several developments. So 1003 to 1007 Farmington Avenue, that's the SK Lavery building. They continue to further refine their concepts and move through DRAC. They have attended 5 study sessions with DRAC at this point in time. 950 Troutbrook Drive, that's the Children's Museum parcel. They have attended DRAC for 3 informal sessions at this point in time. We do expect that they will attend at least one more. 53 to 65 LaSalle Road in 8 Arapahoe. That is the proposed development by Lexum. They have attended 3 study sessions with DRAC at this point in time. And then lastly, Corporate Center West, 433 to 445 South Main. They attended a initial study session back in April. They will be attending a study session tomorrow. With DRAC, we anticipate that this will be the last time. So what they're working on is an expansion to the Hartford Healthcare building that's on the corner of South Main Street and New Britain Avenue. And then they're working on some landscape improvements, parking improvement signage, and then they will be proposing a new restaurant building with a drive-through on the South Main Street side, closer to the Corporate Center West building. So again, we expect that this will be their last informal study session, and then this application will be forthcoming. And then lastly, and then I'm done. Happy to take any questions, but we not included on here, but I will just mention that we are working to, I believe next week, bring the 1051 to 1061 New Britain Avenue project, which is on the former Puritan site. We are working to bring them to the Design Review Advisory Committee for the first time next week. So that's really exciting news, and starting to see some really great progress there. So with that, that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gorski. It was quite an extensive period of time in the last quarter, with results probably being seen in the 3rd and 4th quarters of this year. With respect to the development activity, I think it would be best for us not to entertain any questions here, since they will all be subject to public hearings, and we'll be sitting on all of them. I just had one question, one concern, that as some of these properties change ownership and get new uses, I think those are good opportunities for us as a community to outreach to the property owners to see what kind of beautification efforts they could undertake. It's kind of amazing how, just simple landscaping projects can change the appearance of the entire parcel and really foster economic development and create a positive synergy for the entire block. So I'm certain that people in your office will make some recommendations, whether or not they're heated or not. It's really up to them, but I really commend you for very extensive things. And I do think that this is just the tip of the iceberg as we move forward. As I mentioned last night at our council meeting, I think that there are more people who wish to do business in West Hartford than West Hartford has space available. So, Mr. Winograd, I see you have a question.
Yes, thank you. And just, thank you for a very extensive report. Great to hear all that. Just one thing I'd like to hear about the vacancy rate. Obviously, particularly, it's great to see, on the industrial and the commercial, the multifamily rate is very low. I tried to do some comparison to other places. Again, there are lots of different sources, but I mean, those are rates that, San Francisco type, which obviously has a price pressure. It's great if you own multifamily property, but for renters, it's a tough market. I'm just wondering, can we get some idea, if not now, later, sort of what those, in the chart sort of shows below 5% being healthy, but at some point it becomes a problem. Obviously, the vacancy rate become too low. That just does, the inflationary effect on rent. So I'm just wondering whether maybe get some context historically. Have we been this low before? And what are the sort of danger signs of getting too low on those numbers? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. We can get that information and provide it at a future meeting. Mr. Zanowitz, any questions? Okay. I do have an additional question. I'd like to, and this can come in a future meeting, get a listing of apartment buildings that have 35 or more units in town, so I can get a general understanding of the quantity, as well as if we could identify the location. I think that might be helpful, especially in light of the fact that we've got quite a few proposals in the development activity range coming up that involve apartments. And I think that will be helpful data to have. And I think it will be too late to ask for it at the public hearing. So if there's a way we could get that through possibly the assessor's office, that would be quite helpful. Thank you. It was an amazing report, and it's always good to start a Wednesday morning off with a really good news and end a meeting on a very high note. Does anyone have any other future agenda items? I know we had the concern to see how City View will work. We had an understanding as to what the rents are in this market. Does anyone have anything further? Seeing none, without objection, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Zanowitz, seconded by Mr. Winograd. Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.